A young woman walked into a horse rescue farm and almost immediately noticed something that everyone else had been walking past. At the very end of the stable row stood a pony so small and thin it was hard to look at for long. Her coat was dull and matted, her ribs pressed visibly against her skin, and she stood pressed into the corner of her stall with her head low. A bucket of fresh hay sat untouched beside her. Visitors paused at her gate for a moment, shook their heads, and moved on. But this woman didn't. What happened next would be replayed again and again on the farm's security cameras, because this pony hadn't let anyone touch her since the day she arrived. The rescue staff had tried everything. Different handlers, different feed, quiet voices, slow movements, extra care. But day after day, the pony flinched from every hand that reached toward her, and little by little, she stopped eating. The staff had begun to fear the worst. Then a young woman walked in on a community volunteer visit, and everything changed. The woman's name is Maya, and she is 24 years old. Maya has always been a little different from other people her age. She is quiet and gentle, the kind of person who notices things others miss. A bird with a hurt wing on the edge of a path, a stray cat waiting by a doorway in the rain. She doesn't rush. She doesn't grab. She simply waits and watches until the frightened thing realizes she means no harm. At home, Maya keeps a small journal where she draws the animals she sees and writes down little notes about them, what they were doing, whether they seemed happy or scared. A close friend once found an entry that simply read, "Some animals are sad because someone hurt them. They just need time to trust again." Her local community group organized the visit to Greenwood Horse Rescue as part of a weekend volunteer program. The group was excited. Most of them had never been close to a horse before. They moved from stall to stall, reaching out to pat curious noses and laughing when a horse snorted warm breath onto their hands. The noise of their chatter echoed down the long stable corridor. Maya walked behind the group. She was looking at each animal carefully, the way she always did. And then she saw the pony at the end of the row. The others hadn't stopped there. The pony wasn't pressing her face to the gate, wasn't playful or curious, wasn't doing the things that made other animals feel approachable. She was just standing in the corner, very still, ears flat, eyes dull. Maya stood at the gate for a long moment and didn't say anything. Then, slowly and without being told to, she sat down on the ground outside the stall. Not reaching in, not calling out, just sitting. A volunteer nearby started to say something, but stopped. Something about the way Maya was sitting made her wait. For almost 2 minutes, nothing happened. The pony didn't move. Maya didn't move either. She just sat with her knees pulled up, watching the pony quietly. Then the pony lifted her head. It was just an inch or two, a small, cautious thing. But the staff member watching from down the hallway felt her breath catch, because in 3 weeks, that pony had not once voluntarily looked at a human being. Maya reached very slowly into her jacket pocket and took out a small apple slice she had brought from home. She placed it flat on the ground, just inside the gate, in front of her, and then folded her hands back in her lap and waited. The security camera above the stable recorded the next 60 seconds clearly. The pony took 1 step forward, then another. Then she lowered her head very slowly and took the apple from the ground. The rescue worker in the hallway didn't move. She was afraid that if she breathed too loudly, the moment would break. When the staff reviewed the footage that evening, several of them watched the clip more than once. The farm director sent it to the head veterinarian with a single line, "You need to see this." They had already known the pony's history. But watching her take that apple from Maya's quiet offering made it feel heavier somehow. The pony's name was Clover. She was 8 years old, and for most of those years, she had not known a single kind hand. Clover had been found on a neglect case 6 months earlier. One of 4 horses seized from a property where they had been left without adequate food, water, or shelter for an extended period. The investigation had taken months. By the time authorities were able to remove the animals, Clover was the most damaged of them all, not just physically, but in a way that went deeper. The other horses had recovered steadily in care. Clover had not. The veterinarians treated her wounds. They built her back up slowly with the right food and the right environment. Her body healed, but something in her never relaxed. She startled at raised hands. She pressed herself against walls when people entered her space. And recently, she had begun refusing to eat when staff were present, as if even the act of being watched had become something she associated with danger. "She's not sick," the vet had told the farm director quietly after the latest examination. "She's scared. She doesn't believe anyone is safe yet. And until she does, she won't let herself be cared for." No one had been able to reach her until Maya sat down on the ground outside her stall and simply waited. When Maya heard the story, she sat very still. Then she looked up at the farm director and asked a question no one expected. "Can I come back tomorrow?" The farm director said yes. And the day after that. And the day after that. Every afternoon that week, Maya returned to the rescue farm after work. She always sat in the same place, outside Clover's stall on the ground quietly. Sometimes she brought something from home, a piece of carrot, a slice of apple, a handful of dried oats from the bag the farm had given her. Sometimes she just sat and talked in a low, steady voice about her day, about the birds she'd seen on the drive over, about nothing in particular. She never reached in unless Clover came to her first. By the end of the first week, Clover was walking to the gate when Maya arrived. By the end of the second week, she was accepting food directly from Maya's hand. She's waiting at the gate before Maya even comes around the corner. One of the stable hands told the farm director. She can hear her coming. The staff began to notice other changes too. Clover was eating more consistently. Her posture was different, less compressed, less braced. She had begun to look around her stall with something approaching curiosity rather than wariness. "It's not the apple slices," the veterinarian said, watching the footage one afternoon. "It's the patience. She's never experienced someone who just waited for her, without wanting anything back." Maya's friends and family noticed changes in her as well. She had always been a tender-hearted person, but she had sometimes carried the weight of that tenderness quietly, absorbing hard things without knowing quite what to do with them. Now there was a new steadiness to her. She talked about Clover the way people talk about someone they love. She drew pictures of her in her journal. She researched equine trauma carefully, printing out pages about what helps traumatized horses feel safe and reading late into the night. She just needed someone to show her that not every person is the same as the ones who hurt her. Maya told a friend one evening. Her friend didn't say anything for a moment. Then she said quietly, "I think that's true for a lot of us." The conversation about whether Clover could be placed in her permanent care began quietly, in the way the most important conversations often do, not as a formal request, but as a question that kept returning. Maya had never planned to take in a horse. She didn't have land. She was 24, renting an apartment, working a regular job. There were 100 practical reasons to say it wasn't possible. But she had sat on a stable floor every afternoon for weeks, speaking softly to a frightened animal, asking for nothing in return. And she had watched that animal slowly, tentatively, begin to come back to life. She spoke with the rescue farm. The farm director connected her with a small equine sanctuary nearby, a place where Clover could be kept and cared for properly, where Maya could visit every day, and where, over time, there was room for a relationship to grow into something lasting. The paperwork was completed on a Tuesday afternoon. Maya didn't know the full details until she arrived at the farm, and the director handed her a small card with Clover's name printed on it and the words, "Official Guardian." Maya read it twice. Then she folded it carefully and put it in her jacket pocket and walked down the stable row to sit beside Clover's gate. The weeks that followed were quiet ones. Good ones. Clover's recovery continued steadily. Her coat grew glossier. Her weight balanced out. The flinching, that constant full-body bracing against the world, began to ease. She started to show curiosity, nudging Maya's pockets for treats, pressing her nose against her shoulder, occasionally resting her chin on the gate when Maya sat reading beside the stall. The rescue staff began using Clover as a gentle example in their work. Not of what trauma looks like, but of what patience can do. And Maya, who had always felt her quietness most acutely in a loud and busy world, found that it had become her greatest strength. She knew now that her kind of caring, the slow kind, the kind that waited, was not a small thing. Some of the other volunteers asked about Clover. She told them carefully, the way she told everything, without rushing with all the important details. A few of them started asking if they could visit. The farm director said yes. It wasn't something dramatic. It wasn't something loud. It was a young woman sitting on a stable floor, offering an apple slice and waiting. And a pony who had spent years learning that humans meant harm, slowly deciding that maybe, just this once, she could believe something different. Because the pony who had stopped trusting found, in the end, one person worth trusting again. And the woman who had always felt that her gentleness was too quiet for the world discovered that for some hearts, quiet is the only language that reaches them. They didn't just heal each other. They showed each other what they were each capable of. If this story stayed with you, it would mean a lot if you shared it with someone who needs to hear it today, a friend, a parent, anyone who believes that gentleness is a strength and not a weakness. Leave a comment below telling me, have you ever had a moment like Maya's, where your patience reached something that nothing else could? I read every single one. And if you're new here, welcome. There are more stories just like this one waiting for you. I'll see you in the next one.